Have you ever felt motivated, but still stuck? You wake up determined. You promise yourself today will be different. But somehow, you end the week exactly where you started. This isn't a story about laziness. It's a story about discipline. And it might change the way you see success forever. Daniel slammed the alarm clock with a frustrated fist. The ringing abruptly cut off, leaving only the heavy silence of his small apartment. He rubbed his eyes and sat up, staring at the ceiling, wondering why the same mornings felt heavier every week. Why does this feel so impossible? He muttered under his breath, shaking his head. He had tried again, he really had. Monday morning, bright-eyed, full of energy, full of hope. And now Thursday, dragging himself out of bed, already feeling like a failure before the day even started. He threw on his running shoes, tying the laces roughly, impatiently. "I can't keep doing this," he whispered, looking at his reflection in the hallway mirror. Sweat-stained shirts, untouched gym bag, half-empty notebooks filled with goals he never touched. Daniel's mind raced, thoughts colliding like waves. What's wrong with me? I'm motivated. I watch the videos, I read the quotes. I feel it. Why can't I stick to anything? Out on the street, the crisp morning air did little to clear his frustration. He jogged mechanically, counting steps, ignoring the familiar burn in his legs. He kept telling himself, today will be different, today I'll push myself. But every fiber of his body whispered, just go home, just quit, it's too much. He remembered the countless Monday mornings that felt exactly like this one, full of promise, full of energy, and yet always ending in disappointment. By the time he returned home, drenched in sweat but empty inside, he collapsed onto his bed. His phone buzzed with notifications, another motivational video from his favorite channel, another reminder that success is only one step beyond discipline. He scrolled through, eyes half closed, and a bitter laugh escaped him. Discipline. Motivation. Words. Empty words if you can't live them. He felt a tight knot in his chest. Every time he tried, it felt like the world was against him, or maybe, he was against himself. He flipped open his notebook, pages crammed with scribbles, dates, goals, promises to himself. Get up at 5 a.m. Meditate daily. Exercise. Write every day. Each line was a reminder of failure. 3 years, he muttered. 3 years of writing the same promises, and nothing has changed. Why do I even bother? His hands shook slightly as he closed the notebook. He wanted to scream. He wanted to cry. He wanted someone, anyone, to tell him it was okay to be like this. The room was silent except for his heavy breathing. Then slowly, a thought crept in, cutting through the despair. Maybe motivation isn't the problem. And if this story is resonating with you right now, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Consistency changes lives, and your support helps us keep sharing stories like this. He froze mid-breath. Maybe it's not about feeling good or being inspired. Maybe it's about showing up, even when it hurts, even when you don't want to. The words echoed in his mind. They weren't flashy. They weren't dramatic. They were painfully simple. Show up. Do the work. Every day. The next morning, Daniel woke up before the alarm. The bed was soft, inviting. Every instinct told him to stay. Every thought whispered, you've tried before. You'll fail again. And yet, he swung his legs over the side of the bed. Just 10 minutes, he told himself, voice barely above a whisper. If I hate it, I stop. 10 minutes. That's it. He grabbed a notebook, pen in hand, and started writing, not goals this time, but small, actionable steps. One line. One action. One commitment he could actually keep. 10 minutes passed, and something strange happened. He didn't feel triumphant. He didn't feel motivated. He felt calm, quietly satisfied. The action didn't feel magical, but it felt real. I did something, he thought. I actually did something today. That small spark ignited something inside him, a fragile, tentative hope. The next day, he woke up again, tired, sore, unmotivated. But he did it again. 10 minutes. No fanfare, no music, no hype. Just him and the action. And the day after that, he did it again. Each day stacked on the previous one, and slowly, a rhythm formed. The notebook started to fill with real progress, small victories, steps completed instead of empty promises. Daniel noticed the tightness in his chest loosening. The dread that greeted him every morning softened. Weeks passed, and Daniel began to see the results. Not a sudden, dramatic transformation, but a subtle, undeniable shift. His body felt stronger. His mind sharper. His confidence quieter, but steadier. He started to realize that motivation hadn't disappeared, it had never mattered. The truth was simpler, harsher, but also liberating. Motivation is temporary. Discipline is permanent. He smiled one morning as he looked at his reflection. This is it, he thought. Not the hype. Not the excitement. This daily grind, this consistency, this is what changes a life. He had learned the most important lesson of all. The secret to transformation wasn't magic, it wasn't inspiration, it wasn't waiting for the perfect day. It was showing up. Every single day. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Daniel's mornings were no longer battles with his bed, they were quiet, determined acts of habit. Every step he took, every word he wrote, every small action stacked upon the previous one, creating a momentum he hadn't imagined possible. Yet, the real struggle wasn't the action itself. It was the doubt that crept in silently, like a shadow in the corner of his mind. Am I really doing enough? He whispered one morning, staring at his reflection after a short jog. Sweat streaked his forehead, but his eyes were sharper now, more focused. The inner voice tried to convince him that progress was too slow, that the world was moving faster, that he was falling behind. But Daniel had learned a new language, a language of discipline. He breathed in deeply, shaking his head at the familiar self-doubt. I just need to show up, he reminded himself. I only need to show up. One particularly hard morning, the alarm didn't even go off. Daniel awoke to sunlight spilling across his floor, body heavy with fatigue from the previous day's effort. He groaned, ready to surrender to comfort, to give himself permission to skip. But the words echoed in his mind, relentless and firm, show up. Every day. He swung his legs over the bed, took a deep breath, and moved. 10 minutes. That's all it took to prove to himself that he was stronger than his excuses. The first visible change was subtle, a slightly firmer posture, a steadier gaze, but it grew quickly into something undeniable. Friends started noticing small differences in his energy, the way he carried himself, the quiet confidence that replaced hesitation. Daniel smiled at their comments, but inside, he knew the true victory wasn't external. It was the self-respect that came from keeping promises to himself, from proving over and over that he could trust himself. One evening, after finishing a particularly grueling session of writing and planning, Daniel sat at his desk and stared at the pages he had filled over months. The handwriting, once messy and chaotic, was now orderly, disciplined, each line a testament to persistence. He leaned back in his chair, exhausted, yet profoundly satisfied. I did this, he whispered, voice shaking slightly. All of this. I did this. Not because I felt like it, but because I decided to show up. The transformation didn't stop with him noticing results. It began to ripple into every corner of his life. Tasks he once procrastinated became manageable. Relationships he ignored were nurtured. Goals he abandoned were pursued. Each small act of consistency multiplied, cascading into a life that had once seemed unreachable. Daniel realized that the secret he had stumbled upon was deceptively simple. Motivation is fleeting, action is relentless. Discipline is the bridge between dreaming and achieving. One particularly rainy morning, Daniel sat by his window, watching water streak down the glass, and reflected on the person he had been. The man who woke up each Monday full of hope and abandoned it by Thursday seemed like a stranger now. That version of him had believed that inspiration alone could carry him. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. Motivation without consistency, he murmured, is like a spark without fuel. It burns brightly for a moment, and then disappears. His mind wandered back to the countless nights he had lain awake, frustrated and ashamed, wondering why he failed. Now he understood. It wasn't a lack of effort. It wasn't a lack of talent. It was a lack of persistence, a lack of showing up when it hurt, when it was boring, when no one was watching. This, he thought, tapping the notebook in front of him, is what changes a life. Not inspiration, not a perfect plan, but showing up every single day, no matter what. Months became a year. Daniel's body, mind, and spirit had transformed in ways he had never imagined. But the most profound change wasn't physical or material, it was the unwavering belief in himself. He no longer waited for motivation. He no longer depended on feelings to dictate his actions. He had become unstoppable, not because life had become easier, but because he had become stronger. Because he had mastered the art of consistency. One evening, he found himself speaking to a friend who had just started struggling with their own goals. "You don't need to feel motivated," he said quietly, leaning forward, earnest. "You need to show up. Even when it hurts. Even when it's boring. Even when you don't want to. That's what changes everything." His friend stared at him, skeptical, but Daniel's calm confidence left no room for argument. "Consistency," he repeated, softly but firmly, "kills excuses." Daniel's journey wasn't perfect. He stumbled, he faltered. He faced days when giving up seemed like the only option. But each time he returned to the discipline he had built, each time he chose to act instead of waiting to feel inspired, he reinforced a truth that became his mantra. Motivation is a feeling. Discipline is a decision. As he lay in bed one quiet night, reflecting on the years of struggle and growth, he felt a wave of gratitude. Gratitude not for the easy victories, but for the challenges, for the moments that tested him, for the mornings when he didn't feel like moving but moved anyway. He closed his eyes, smiling. The journey had changed him. Not because of motivation, not because of luck, not because of talent, but because of the relentless, unglamorous power of showing up every single day. And in that quiet realization, Daniel understood a truth that would guide him forever. Success doesn't belong to the motivated, the talented, or the lucky. It belongs to the consistent. It belongs to those who act, even when inspiration fades, even when the world doubts them. Those who choose discipline over desire, action over excuses, and persistence over instant gratification. Because the fire of motivation alone can flicker and die, but the flame of discipline, fanned daily, burns bright enough to light a lifetime.